And we are live and recording. Cool. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of What Works Right Now in B2B Marketing. Today, I've got Ton Dobber. Ton is someone I've come across a few years ago in my career. He is an author of a very cool book called The Remarkable Effect. And Ton has been spending his most of his last few years and deep in the trenches, helping companies actually stand out and position themselves to actually sell what makes them good out there in the market. And Ton, I'm going to let you give your own introduction so I didn't butcher your profile and I didn't miss anything that's important at the moment. So if you don't mind, quickly take a moment to just tell everyone who you are, what you do, and why we should listen to you today.
Thank you very much for the introduction. First of all, inviting me as well. Yeah, like you said, I've been in the trenches for a while. Not actually the last few years. It's about a couple of decades. First of all, heading up product marketing and product strategy at a company called Unit 4. It's a software company from the Netherlands that then started to spread across the world. So I've been to a couple of places there. But indeed, the last 8 years now, I decided not to want to work for a large corporate anymore and to help those companies, particularly in the software industry, exclusively in the software industry, to get through those growth barriers that they typically see, the stagnation that they are facing because everything is going faster, and bring my knowledge to the place, my outside-in perspective, to figure out what is wrong at the roots, because a lot of companies, but that may be something for the conversation itself, really aim at fixing symptoms, where a lot of the problems that companies face are actually root cause material, foundational, as I call it. That's what I help fix, and then I help with implementation of that, so it actually starts to get the needles moving. Yeah.
Cool, exciting. I'm going to start right there. I think you just touched on an interesting topic that I think opens up the conversation quite nicely. Growth barriers from like a quick fire right now. And I know obviously the big thing is we know teams are getting smaller. That's a fact. There's less budget available. Investors are not throwing money around unless you've got a very cool AI product that you can put on the table. Like, money is quite scarce. Over the last what feels like the last 12 months, but let's say like the last 24, we moved from growth at all costs to kind of survive at all costs or profitable at all costs, which means the barriers shift because you can't just throw money at problems anymore. And a lot of teams who were used to throwing money at problems, they have to like face a very different reality all of a sudden, that it's a different game that you're playing. But the targets keep rising, and we don't, like, the growth wheel doesn't stop turning with these challenges. So from your perspective right now, what's the barriers that stand out? And I mean, there's obviously a bunch, but let's talk about the big ones that pop out. Like, what are companies running into that's keeping them from growing?
Like, where can I start? It's what I see a lot. And I've completely seen what you just described, this whole at scale thing, and the growth at all costs. The problem with that is always indeed, throw money at things, but the problem is always throw money at things that actually don't work at all anyway, and then money solve that. So if it's 2%, maybe make it 2.5% that is converting. But today, of course, that is extremely costly because of all the noise in the marketplace. So where, that is not working, and even if money will come back or we do it in another way, it will still not work. It will still not work because a lot of companies don't even. First of all, the how do you say that? It starts with solving a problem, and a lot of companies don't even know how to talk about the problem that they solve, the problem that is actually meaningful for the customer. And then when they realize, okay, we need to solve, we're solving this particular problem, then they don't articulate well enough why pick them over all the others. a lot of the competition, particularly in the scale at all, at scale movement that you had, was about better, not different. And I think that's where the magic hides. If you can explain to someone, okay, I solved this problem and this is how I solve it in a different way, then it's for the other side to figure out, okay, is this the different way? Is this my way? And then you got a deal, and otherwise not, and everybody's happy. And that's I think where, you started about the stagnation and the growth barriers. That is stopping a lot of companies from growing. It's not that they got stupid people. It's not that they got bad products. It's all hidden there already. They just need to start talking about it in a more relevant way.
Because usually it's just, hey, we've got feature X, Y, Z.
Exactly.
Do you want feature X, Y, Z? And they fail to say what feature X, Y, Z actually solves. That's
true. Yeah. Well, they sometimes talk about what you get by having the feature, but even then, that is all pie in the sky. Companies and people that come to market don't come to market because they got time right now to start looking at something new. They only come to market because they have a problem that is super valuable for them to solve and super critical for them to solve. Otherwise, they don't have time for this anymore. No money, no time.
No money, no time.
If you have a problem that you solve that is valuable, but it's not critical, it's nice to have. So in a good market, you likely will sell. In a bad market, it's absolutely dead in the water. So in my book, I talk about a triangle, which is a triangle that almost always works for anything you do, whether it's building something, marketing something, selling something, even implementing something. And the three questions are indeed, it's the reason why I chose a triangle, because the strongest triangles are the ones that have three equal legs. If one is shorter than the other, it's
a bit wonky.
It's get wonky, yeah, exactly. So the three questions that kind of belong to those three edges is if you solve a particular problem for a customer, and you create a list out of that, look at those problems and say, okay, is this problem valuable to solve? Yes or no. If it's critical to solve, yes or no. And the last one is, can we exceed expectations? Yes or no. If you got 3 yeses, go ahead. If you got 1 no, start over. And that is where tons of marketing money is wasted. Like enormous amount of sales capacity. And then once you get a deal, potentially have a deal, a lot of time is wasted in the implementation, in customer success, potentially even further.
Cool. I'm gonna cycle back to that triangle, because I think that comes down and almost a takeaway of how do you go about that? What's the playbook of figuring out what problem you actually solve? Because I think that's like the crux of what we're discussing today. It's like figuring out what problem you really solve, understanding your customer and then positioning your brand, obviously, or your product directly towards that. You mentioned now the noise in the market. I quickly want to touch, and I don't want to turn the conversation to AI, but the noise in the market is getting more, and I think it's getting more and more from 2 angles. It's getting more because building is quicker and easier than ever. We see people build platforms with nothing but 2 hours. I've tested these things out. I've not built $1 million product just yet, but you can build something very good very quickly, especially if you've got a dev on board that can actually code along with your AI. So there's more things shipping way faster than ever, and at the same time there's AI content everywhere. So who's never been able to put out a decent video or a decent post on LinkedIn or a half good baked email that can fire. This is all now on autopilot. So there's more emails firing out, there's more cold outreach, there's more products, and there's just more noise, which makes standing out and selling your features even harder.
Yeah, true.
What do you think about that? What's your thoughts on the noise in the market at the moment?
Well, tell it as it is, stay human. And where everybody's going at scale, the question is that you have to ask yourself, do I need scale? What I see a lot with software companies, that's at the end, the group that I work with sales-led software companies. These are the ones that actually have a sales force to sell something. A lot of those sales led software companies, they have a pretty good year if they sell 50 deals. So where is this at scale thing coming from? You can be super picky. What the problem is that they're trying to solve, and a lot of them are winning 10%, so 1 out of 10, or possibly 1 in 5, 20%, meaning they're either losing 90% or 80%, but still it's not crazy numbers. But if you start articulating who you're for and who you're not for, very important, and why, and that why is about why would these people that you're for, the people that become your biggest fans in my book, talking about the remarkable effect, why would they pay a premium for this? If you get that clear and you start focusing just on that, your win rate will go up to 40 to 50 to 60%, meaning you need even less leads. But where do you find those leads, and how do you get through the noise? I think one of the things that's coming back is going back to events again, meeting people in person, doing things that build relationships, because that's what B2B software marketing or B2B marketing is at the end all about anyway.
It's always been about.
Yeah, exactly. So because it's a lot about larger investments, you don't sell it on 5 emails anymore. Maybe you can get a conversation going as well, but at the end, everybody's
if you have a yes to all 3 of the questions on your triangle, then maybe
that's another thing. Exactly.
Maybe.
Yeah, and this whole the fact that you can easily create content, whether it's video or written content or whatever the flavor is. At the end, it needs to communicate something that hits a nerve. That people say, wait a minute, what was that? If this is true, I need to pay attention. And that can be as short as one-liner. But from there on, every time you communicate it, it's not only about getting that clear, but it's also everybody in your company being able to articulate it in a clear way. Because how many opportunities do you have on the street to talk to people? In the train, what do you do? Oh, glad you asked. All of those moments become the moments where connections can be created and opportunities can be built.
Cool. And you mentioned events now. We see that quite hectic as well. Especially this whole notion of the unconference. The term is used very loosely, but no one wants to sit in an auditorium anymore and listen to talks that you can see anywhere online. I mean, we're having this conversation right now. It's going to be available plus minus 4 minutes the moment we say goodbye to each other. You're going to see this conversation. There's no reason to go sit in a big auditorium, fly halfway across the world to go sit in an audience to watch a panel discussion where experts in the field are having a conversation about a topic. It is about the connection. People go to these events because we're exhausted from online remote work, like consumption of online entertainment and content, and what we crave is human connection. And then when you meet someone at an event, you maybe have a beer together or a good conversation, and you actually exchange ideas and thought patterns and maybe a disagreement or two on a topic. You actually build a relationship that could go way further than any 5 email sequence could ever get you. You might have even fall in a conversation you'd never be able to open up any other way. So
you hit an important point there, like having a conversation. How many emails, messages, website pages, whatever, do you see where you're like, okay, who are we actually talking to here? It's every time we there's something published on LinkedIn, you ask yourself, would you say it like that when you just would have a cup of coffee with someone? Okay. Why is that distance there? Why don't we say it as it is? Because the moment we say it as it is, we're clear, we're simple, we're unhyped, we're no bullshit, and we resonate.
Yeah, just back to the point of be more human. It's the problem I have with, and I've got no problem with people writing their content with AI. We all use it now to kind of curate and to speed things up. But if I read something, if I put out something myself, it needs to. Yes, there's the brand voice, and then there's the filter of exactly like you said. if I were in the conversation reading this, like if I had to like narrate this to someone, would it come out natural? Like, would it sound like I'm actually the person behind these words? Like, is it human enough? Like, are we hitting the right conversation? And also to the point of like how many emails and websites and landing pages out there, the objective really is conversation, right? At the end of the day, that's what you want. You want a conversation, but 90% of the time you don't get it, and people don't book demos anymore. I don't know, like you're dealing with this quite a bit on the sales lead front. Are you seeing a decline in demo books, like typical inbound, like add to landing page to someone hitting a button that says book a demo with your team and then slotting in a call?
Well, I'm possibly the biggest advocate for not having that button on your website. Maybe the wrong person to ask. Now, the reason why I'm against the demos is because a demo puts everybody in the wrong spot. I mean, if someone wants to go, if someone uses your tool to book a demo, like, what are you going to do with these people? You're going to show them something that is not connected to the problem that they have, not connected to the context that they have. Everything is disconnected, and then you end up in, okay, so we both wasted half an hour.
If you add a sales deck, it's more
exactly.
than half an hour.
And then and so there's only but frustration. So I'm not in for that at all. I mean, I'm far more into, okay, let's see if there's a fit. If we can solve your most valuable and critical problem in a way that you get value that you cannot get anywhere else, because that is when you become the only one. And if that's a no in 10 minutes, perfect, everybody happy. And if that's a yes in half an hour, next round, everybody happy as well. But we both haven't wasted time and money. So book a demo? No, please not, because it's not of value to a customer.
I'm in complete agreement with you. I mean, I'm one of those people. I don't book demos. I don't care. Like, if I can't like serve myself, I've got no intention of hitting a button on a web. And I mean, I work in marketing, so I understand it. Most of us do. Obviously, everyone here. Yeah. You know what happens when you hit that button? There's a endless spam of very terrible sales emails on the other side that has one objective, and then you're going to get shoved this sales deck down your throat and a useless demo, as you say. Like, if I can't see it myself and I don't see the solution to my problem, I don't actually want to talk to you. If you can't make that very obvious very quickly, then I'm probably over to whoever's website ticks that box the quickest, and I'll have a conversation with them. But then it's like, hey, here's what I want. Can you solve this? Yes, no, let's talk about it. And that's that.
Exactly. Yeah. For me, it's always, if you know what problem you solve best, so there's pure differentiated power, and you know the context where that happens. What happens during those calls is, it's not an audition that you have with your customer. It's an audition that they have with you. That's how I typically see it, and that works fantastic, because it's all about them, and understanding whether there's a fit, and if there's no fit, by all means, let's split rows. Because again, I mean the sales software world, if 50 deals is making a good year, why not ensure that all these 50 deals become the biggest fans of you? Because those biggest fans will talk about it with peers. They will buy at a higher price, because the value is clear to them. They buy more often. All of these things become your flywheel. That's what I mean. It's all about creating levers in the business, because the sale is not where it ends. Marketing is not where it starts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a wrong deal hits you forever.
Forever, yeah. And it's that you just throw it over the fence. It's the worst thing you can do.
Exactly.
So that's once again just I think a very important topic is I mean, it's a notorious story in our industry, right? Sales marketing alignment it's an actual joke. Like, people joke about it every single day, online, offline. There's always frustration. Sales doesn't get what marketing does. Marketing doesn't get what sales do. It's over and over the same story. But the magic actually happens when everyone starts working together. And you're right, it's not just marketing and sales. Like, yes, marketing needs to understand that someone who just wants to view a webinar is not ready to buy. There's a very big difference between someone who's just curious about your content, an actual lead, or an MQL, or God forbid, an SQL. And then sales need to know that they can't throw anything over the wall to customer success that's clearly not prepped right. was sold the future, or like oversold something that doesn't work, and it's just problems. And the problem is the ripple effect on the word of mouth. So you're talking about the biggest fans, and we'll get to this in a second as well now. But you also get the opposite of that, which is your worst enemies. And people with bad experiences, they talk more than people with good experiences. That's kind of the way the world works. People are very quick to say, no, don't use them because X, Y, Z, I didn't have a good experience.
Exactly.
They'll mention that way quicker, and the damage of that you don't always see, but it is there. And then you wonder why, like, the leads are drying up and what's not happening. But meanwhile, the word of mouth and the noise out there is not the noise that you want.
Exactly.
Cool.
That's true.
So I'm gonna steer this now, just to like very specifically the question. We're talking about understanding the customer's pain points, where we start positioning. So, in your words, why? And I mean, it's now already been discussed, but what is the importance of that unique, clear, differentiated value proposition? I'll take that question one further, and it's like, what is the outcome of that? If we know the cost of blending in is a dry pipeline and high cost of acquisition, and we know under the layman's terms that if you get the things right, your cost of acquisition obviously comes down. But according to you, if you had to, in your own words, explain to the audience, like, why unique, clear value proposition that talks to pain points?
It's at the end, for a customer to get a very clear understanding, like why you should be their only choice, in very clear, simple words. Because I mean, if you look at what's happening today again, with all the AI tools out there, it's not only that the vendors are using them to spam people, they also use the opposite around, because you can do fantastic research. So it takes longer and longer and longer and longer and longer for customers to even get to the point where they connect with you. And then they have already made up their shortlist. So if you're not clear about why pick you over anybody else, and make deliberate choices there so that you can actually stand out, there's 3 buckets these companies work, or these customers work with, or prospects work with. It's a yes bucket, it's a maybe bucket, and it's a no bucket. And guess where you will end?
In the no bucket.
In the no bucket. So a lot of the waste is already happening because you don't even get invited. So then there's people that say, okay, I want to get invited by a lot. But again, if the customer is only going to limit their choice to 10, there needs to be a very compelling reason for you to be on that yes and well, I mean, and possibly the maybe list, because a lot of the list is already occupied by people that they already know, that they've worked with, that they get recommended by friends. So yeah, I mean, what's the space there? So you need to, I mean, you talk about value proposition, and value proposition to me is very connected to positioning.
Mm-hmm.
And positioning is an active word. It's taking position.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't take position, someone else will make your position, or they will determine where you fit. And if it's a prospect, they'll do it. Hopefully it's right. If it's a competitor, they're very likely to get it wrong. So just be open about it, and pick your spot where you can be the only one. And that needs to be, for better or worse, around something that is highly valuable and highly critical for people. If you can connect to that, a lot of things will fall into place. And of course, people will start thinking about, yeah, but I miss out on things and so on. But you miss out on far more if you're not that clear. So it's that is why it's so important. It's not a luxury these days anymore. I mean, for a lot of companies, it's survival, because there's so much noise out there.
Yeah, blending in a certain death.
Exactly, and a lot of the time also, the differentiation needs to be about something that it stops people in their trenches, and that's I think another trend. People don't take the time anymore to fully consider. So it's like 10 seconds, no, 2 seconds that it needs to hit. So it needs to be almost controversial in a good way, provocative in a good way, whereby you win 2 seconds by 2 seconds, or 7 seconds by 7 seconds, and that's how you move forward until they say, okay, we need to talk to each other. And that's how, tell it as it is. And also, I mean, what also helps that I've seen, and I'm doing it on with my customers, but also on my own website. If you go to my website, for example, you get very clear who's this for, and who's this not for. And the who is this not for is possibly even more important, because it sort of it creates that gap, and that also works for the one that it is for.
Yeah, it's the clear place yourself in the bucket before the person can. Like,
exactly.
Hey, yes, yeah.
Be bold about it and be blunt about it. It doesn't matter, because if you know who's not a good fit because of a number of reasons, and not because they are bad people, not everybody wants the same, and not everybody not every problem that you solve is you solve it in a way that is the best for anybody else. I mean, it goes back possibly 2 decades when I talk about my old company. We were competing against SAP and Oracle and Microsoft, all the big ones. And if we would compete on a functional level, well, we would be luckily if we would 1 in 10, 20% or so. The moment we started to be super selective, this is who we're for, this is who we're not for, and this is why, things moved to 80%. And these large vendors started qualifying out. Super powerful. And it's very basic stuff.
Yeah, less leads, but more.
Exactly.
High win rate, yeah. So
it's about clarity. But the clarity is about daring to make choices. And that's where
people are afraid of. This interesting. This entire week is almost like around positioning for me. Yesterday, one of our live courses coming up is about positioning, but more focused on marketing agencies. Like, agencies also have this problem. Like, they all just do the same thing. Like, it's really notorious. Like, what do you do? Everything. No one wants an agency that does everything. I want an agency that does one thing really good. So stop saying yes to everything and being like everything to everyone. And we had this conversation yesterday in a webinar as well. Like, why do agency owners do this? Because they're afraid of losing that customer. They're afraid that customer might go to someone else that does that better. So they end up like saying yes to stuff that they can't really do, and then screwing it up, and then losing the customer anyway, because it's the cycle where saying yes actually does more harm. Yes, you get more business, but you end up like burning bridges left, right, and center, where sometimes it's just better to say, no, we don't do that, or no, we're not for you. You're not the right customer for us. There's definitely someone else out there that will serve you, but no.
And guess what happens then? The moment you say to a company that thinks that they want to do business with you, so there's already a good click, and then you say, but I don't think we are a good fit. If they think they are a good fit, they start selling to you. That's, of course, a fantastic position to be in.
Yeah, because then the tables turn around 100%. This actually happened to me, I think 2 weeks ago. Like, a company, I actually set up like a call because we had a very specific thing we wanted to solve, and came through as a referral, like, use this company. And then I just immediately like booked a call because I wanted to get the ball rolling as quick as possible. And just, I know you solved my problem. You came through as our referral. And then I got an email and a canceled meeting. And I was like, what? And they just said, sorry, we actually didn't, we just looked at your company profile, and this is not a fit for us. Sorry, we didn't. And they're like, no, I can light-hearted apology, but very clear. And I was like, oh, that's actually nice. Thanks for not wasting my time for 30 minutes in a call. I've got my 30 minutes of my day back, and I know this is not my solution, because they were just very clear about, like, we work with companies in these sectors, like with these rounds of funding. And I was like, yeah, 100%. So going on, I think we've already touched on this, but I want to like concretely make this point of like, where do most go wrong? They talk about themselves. They're not clear about who they're for. I think the big one that I've at least seen, and that I know is the big one on the table, is people struggle to really define the problem that they solve. Talking about features is easy. That's hey, we do X, Y, Z. Talking about outcomes is also easy. It gets a bit harder if you don't know the problem, but it's easy to like, hey, we can speed up something by 5 times, so we can help you get 10 times more out of X, Y, Z. That's the easy stuff that you can make up, and the marketing dust you can sprinkle. But what you can't make up is customer problems, because you can make them up, it's just not going to get you anyway. So Where do you think most companies go wrong with, and let's zoom out on that, on like understanding their problems? Do they not talk to their customers? Do they?
They do,
What
but
do
they
they?
don't listen. They do, but they don't listen. And they stop too early. They hear something, and they think, I can solve that. And then that's that. Actually, I did a workshop this morning. I'm not going to name the name of the company. 13 people on the call, all did their homework. 12 completely off. There was only one that nailed it. And
what was the question? Just for clarity, like what problem do you solve?
No, I mean it was like give the 5 problems that your customer, the roadblocks your customers struggle to overcome. When it comes to being successful in their role or in their business. And first of all, there's a couple of themes here. There's people think that the problem they have is that they don't have their solution, so they start to bring the solution as a component. So, for example, not having all information in one place, that is the big roadblock that people are struggling with. Yeah, maybe it is,
but probably not.
But it's the consequence of not having it. That is where the problem hides. So it's in the consequence of not being able to either live up to an expectation or live up to your own commitment. What is very often missing is context. For example, one example that got shared was that they struggled to provide the right answers to management on time. Well, yeah, of course. Very high level, technically it's yes. But the moment you start saying that, when someone else hears that, it goes in here and goes out the other end very quickly. So I asked and kept asking, what do you mean? Can you give an example? And the moment I started giving examples, things got super specific. These questions about reports or about, questions that the management had was about what are the pricing indexation challenges we have in our contracts, and I want to have it before the next meeting starts. Where are we under pricing? Where are we leaving money on the table in our contracts? Where do we run the risks in? Well, I mean, very specific, very concrete, something, and that is where the problem needs to be. When the right person hears about the problem, they need to get very itchy, getting shivers because
I know that feeling. Yeah.
Exactly. So when you do that well, people listen. Because wait a minute, now you have me. First of all, you understand my business, and it's not everybody can say, yeah, well, the problem at the end this customer have is they're not in control, or they don't have the right insights to make the right decisions. Well, so what are you selling right now? Could be a CRM, could be a procurement system, could be an ERP, or could be a field service management solution. How is that related to your solution that you're in? And that's where context comes in. And the context is often about dynamics, unique dynamics that the business is in. For example, if you sell, if this is a problem you're solving, you help, well, the problem that you're solving could have a completely different meaning to a company that is just for example, in the Netherlands or in the UK with 1 or 2 offices, just customers there, mid-size and so on, versus a company that is in 26 countries around the world, heavily regulated, very well, growing fast, same problem, completely different context, completely different dynamics. And suddenly it turns from, yes, it's valuable to solve but not critical, or it's super valuable to solve and highly critical, and your solution has something to do with it as well, because now in that particular context, you can actually make a complete difference and rule everybody out in 2 minutes. And that is, yeah, it's about getting concrete and daring to ask questions to customers. Okay, you say this, but what do you actually mean with this? Can you give an example? When did it happen last? What happened? Yeah, get into the nitty gritty of it.
Okay, so I guess then let's use the last bit of this conversation then to turn it into that advice. So if we know this is the problem, and we know you just had this morning 13 people in a call and 12 of them struggled to come up with the first 5, and I'm assuming these people are not new to the company. And the thing is, this happens everywhere, because that is the hardest thing to nail down. And then we're not even talking about rolling that problem out, because now you still need to translate that into a sales pitch. You need to translate that into your website copy. You need to translate that into a value proposition that you use across your content marketing, across everything that you put out into the world. That's the very hard part. Like, not even getting there. But if you can't cross the bridge of defining and understanding the problem of your customer, and I think you just started touching on it now, like the questions that you do have to ask. So let's put it into concrete advice that we can like put into a package and I can shove into a newsletter for people. How do you go about then guiding your customers to identify these problems? Like if you had to now like condense this into like 10-minute version of like a workshop, how do we go after those problems? How does someone listening to this call who works at a sales led SaaS company go and say, guys, we've been doing it wrong. Here's 5 things we need to go do now.
Yeah. Well, it's maybe it can be told, or it can be told in 10 or 5 minutes, but it's not something you solve on the back of the napkin.
To point people in the right direction. That's what it's about.
Exactly. No, I mean, I definitely. How I always start is digging deep in terms of who you're for and who you're not for. That's the first part. And don't stick to demographics and firmographics. Dig into psychographics.
CEO of company XYZ and country.
Exactly. So it's not about this. I mean, companies can look exactly the same on the outside. It's a company of 1,000 people, headquartered in London, doing business in Europe. These type of services, same. On the inside, it's completely different because of the people that work there, of the ambitions that they have, of the dynamics that they are creating for themselves, the competitive pressures that they're facing. All of these dynamics start to play. What I talk about it in one of my essays. A lot of companies, when they do segmentation, I call that, they stop at the glass of water. The glass of water meaning demographics, firmographics. It's true, everything is in there, but it's not like tasty. If on the segmentation side, I've got an essay around that topic where I talk about it in more detail, but it's kind of comparing a glass of water to your favorite cocktail. Glass of water is, there's water in there. It's your prospects will likely be in there, but it's pretty flat. Companies are 1,000 people in the Netherlands or in the UK, doing this and that, having this type of revenue and selling through an indirect channel. You can all find it on LinkedIn. Then you got your list. Now you got 1,000 companies. 90% won't buy from you. And the reason why they won't buy from you is not because of the fact that they are the wrong size or so on. That's all correct. They are in that bucket, but it's because of a number of those slices that you put in. So if you create a cocktail, you put in a splash of this and a splash of that and a slice of this. So that's about what are the unique dynamics that these customers have that your not so good customers don't have. What do they aspire that your not so good customers don't aspire? What do they value that your not so good customers do not value? So typically the conversation to have is, okay, what defines the type of organizations that you like, that you really should send off to your competitors and say goodbye, have good luck, and which one should you focus on? So it's really looking at empathy at the companies that didn't buy from you, not because they were stupid, but realizing, wait a minute, they were not stupid. They were actually pretty good informed. They just wanted something else. And that is because of those slices. Want something else.
Did they want?
Tolerate different risks, have different dynamics in the business, don't acquire a lot of companies, but grow organically. All of these dynamics make up a perfect profile, negative or positive. And if you can put it into a black and white motion, you start to hit to see that. The second thing you then do, so you do it at the persona level, and then you move up to the business level. So you zoom out. Then you start looking into, okay, now I look at only the ones that become our biggest fans, the ones that have the right characteristics. What are then the unique problems that they have? So you create a list of 20, 30, 40, 50 problems. And then do that exercise. Each problem, how valuable is it to solve it? How critical is it to solve for your ideal customer? And then the last one is, what is your ability to exceed expectations on that problem? That's a triangle.
Yeah,
That becomes a formula. It's a very simple thing. It becomes a formula. Value multiplied by critical, multiplied by exceed expectations, like is a number 8 multiplied by 9 multiplied by whatever number. It's everything between 0 and 1,000. Everything above 500 is material for positioning, because that's typically around 8 and above. Otherwise, you cannot hit the 500 number. So it takes the whole list of 50 problems, takes it down to the essence of what is highly valuable, critical, and where you have an edge. And I mean, talking about exceeding expectations, what I see a lot of companies making a mistake there is that exceeding expectations doesn't mean you solve the problem. Many people can solve the problem. You score a 5 if you solve it. What makes it an 8? Because then you really need to have an edge. And you need to be very specific about the situational context that it needs to happen in. But that is super powerful. And that is your material that once you got that, you can start bringing it together and start asking questions like, okay, if we solve these problems better than anyone else, what's behind this? And I call that magic concepts. Typically looking at more of the DNA of the underlying solution that provides your deep differentiation. And the deep differentiation is needed because if you say, yeah, we are different because we have this AI feature, guess what? The competitor can build it in 2 sprints.
Yeah.
And likely in 2 months, they can build it in 1 day.
That's the problem. You can't differentiate on features anymore.
No.
Like if you just run and say our feature is the reason you need to buy it.
And it's also the feature competition is a vicious cycle that no one can win because you're competing with the world. Everybody, I mean, if you're having a credible solution, it needs to do a number of things, and it doesn't need to do everything better than everybody else.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're competing on features, you're just competing with the industry leader, the most famous brand that solves the same problem that you do. Like people default
there's more people to develop.
And kind of you started with that right at the beginning of the conversation. It's like, why should they pick you over someone else? It also becomes like, why should they pick you over the industry leader if you're not the industry leader, which is the kind of default. There's always like the household, the coffee machine name that, cool, we know they do it. They're already in the maybe bucket one way or another.
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe I've heard of something else I also want to check out, but you're competing with that company, and if you don't differentiate in a meaningful way, then you're always just going to lose out to the biggest player in the pond. They don't need to stop the scroll because they've already they have that mental availability readily hosted, and you're competing with that.
Yeah. The things that I've just been talking about, I call that, I've started to refer to that as the value foundation of the company. So where there's also all kind of symptoms of things that are happening and not going well, if win rates suddenly start to become longer or become lower, and the cycles become a little longer, all of these type of things are signals something is wrong. Often not because your salespeople have changed being good to not good. Something is fundamentally wrong often. And in my book, I'm talking about the 3 levers for remarkable software companies, and it starts with getting the value foundation right. That's your value lever. The moment you got that right, you got your positioning right, you got your value proposition in the correct wording, articulated in a way that everybody can do it, then it comes down to now create momentum. So a lot of companies make the mistake to just throw it over the fence, say, okay, learn it by heart, good luck with it.
Yeah, how do we implement this? Yeah, I've seen that personally quite a few times. It's like, how do you? Yeah.
But the whole thing is you cannot blame them. Or maybe you can blame them, you can't blame them. But if sales have always been selling like this, and now they got a different value proposition, they very often have to unlearn things and learn new things because of the mechanics of the whole thing to make it a lever at the end. So what they say, the best positioning created by the world's best positioners in the world don't survive. If they don't survive the jump to sales, everything falls flat, and everybody is in tears again. So pay attention to that as well.
Yeah, because once again, back to my point of rolling it out is where the hard part starts. Like defining the problem is hard, but making it work in all the different areas. And it doesn't stop at marketing, it doesn't stop on the website, it doesn't stop in the cold email, it doesn't stop at sales. But sales is usually the forefront where it makes or breaks. Like you can have all the leads, that you can have the show-stopping content on LinkedIn, that you've got that 2 seconds that, hey, I feel the pain, I've got the goosebumps, I'm interested, I'll click. And then you get on the website and it's like, okay, cool, I understand, I see what you guys do. They get through and then they get to sales, and sales miss the mark, unfortunately. And I think sales have the hardest job of the bunch, and I'm a marketer saying that. It's, yeah, I agree with you. Like if you can't get it over the fence to sales and they don't bite into it very hard and run with it, then
But it's tough.
Falls flat.
Because it's not something that you do on the Friday afternoon. It needs to really be become a new part of the new DNA. Something needs to change within.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you create is then they see the light as well, and they start to believe in it. They create confidence, and that confidence, that translates. Because then they can do the discoveries in a different way. Then they can do their, I hate the word demos, I call it proof of value, in the right way. Then they can say, wait a minute, after 10 minutes, we can solve your problem, but I think you don't get the real value of what we were built for. So we possibly should say goodbye right now. Qualify out with confidence. It's all about confidence.
Yeah, but ideally you want that already to happen on your website. That's the thing. If you succeed, your salesperson should actually not sit in a call where they have to make that decision. Like that's yes, you're gonna have less leads, but your close rate should go up, and you should have more quality in the pipeline to work with.
Exactly.
Obviously, because
the pipeline starts. The funnel doesn't look like this. It looks like this.
Yeah, a little bit more open.
A little bit. Yeah, exactly.
Open the bottom up, so more comes through actually. So yeah, cool.
At a higher value.
You give it high value, and the company articulates it better across the board. And I mean, to go into that third point of, can you deliver it exceptionally well, or can you do like a very good job there? That's often where it does come over to the product or the customer service itself. Like, what's the experience? And the brand triarchy we always talk about, like there's awareness, and then there's perception, and then there's experience that solidifies it. Like if you can sell whatever you like, but if the experience breaks down, everything else falls apart. Then your awareness becomes toxic, and it's a bad cycle. And it's so can you do
get the foundation right? And it's not only kind of and marketing gets confident about it, and sales get confident about it. Don't stop there, because implementation needs to also own it. And once that is going into the train, the customer success after that, and support after that one, and then at the end also back to R&D, everybody can keep each other honest. Like, wait a minute, why did we actually get this customer in? Because it should have been qualified out at these points already.
Should never have made it into the sales pipeline.
Yeah, and then going back to your first question, like stagnation doesn't come from doing things really, really well, and suddenly it doesn't anymore. It's a kind of an ongoing thing that goes wrong, because it becomes the sales. Sales is done, flags go out, big deal comes in, and then if it's the wrong type of deal, it takes a longer time to implement, low utilization, margin drain. Customer success needs more resources, needs more time to get people towards their first gains. Means lower utilization, margin drain. These customers that bought it because they saw you could solve something, but they didn't buy it for what they really want for, they're going to ask feature requests to R&D that you normally wouldn't build. Meaning R&D is going to be occupied, roadmap is going to be derailed, products will come out that have less impact that they should have. Meaning,
to serve one customer. Yeah.
So it's a vicious cycle, and that's how companies end up in this desperate funding machine. Like, okay, we didn't make the numbers again. Now we have to get new money in because we still cannot stand on our own feet. But I always talk about, okay, the moment you get this foundation right, you implement it the right way, you get funding freedom, and if you need money, you'll easily get it because investors will be standing in line.
Well, yeah, they're standing.
You can just keep going.
There we go. And I think that's the note that we end this conversation on. I think there's a lot of value in there, and I really like the value foundation. And I think there's a lot there, and I think that's fundamentally what a lot of companies just get wrong, and it costs a lot of resources across the board. And I think right now we're sitting in a place where you just can't afford not to have that foundation right. Like if you don't have your foundation ready and right, and everyone in the company understands it, you are going to fail on all fronts. And
well, I mean, if you do okay, if you get the foundation right,
failure is a harsh word, but you're not going to blow the lights out.
It's not even failure. People sometimes think we're doing okay, but the moment you get your foundation really right, you can do with the same people 3-4 times more.
Yeah,
easily.
So clearly differentiate, understand your audience's problems, and understand if it's critical, if it's valuable, and if you can do it exceptionally well.
Exactly.
I think that's that. Thank you very much, Don.
Pleasure.